Hi, everybody. People ask me sometimes about what it was like being gay during the height of the AIDS crisis, doing porn, and getting into bondage and discipline. And I tell them that it was like hell, but being a Christian has been so much more difficult. When I was gay, I rarely had fear. Looking back now, I see what intense pain I was under, and just the torture of it all. But at the time, I thought everything was fine, and I thought everything was great, and things were going very, very well. I remember very well a friend dying. He was in his late 20s, and I went to the funeral that day, and I recall going to a bar that night, going to a nightclub and dancing, and having drinks and not thinking a thing about it, sort of celebrating his life and in the way that I thought was honoring him, and that was by picking up a stranger and having sex. As for pornography, that was something I was really just groomed to get involved with since I was a kid. When you grow up from a young age, looking at porn, whether it's softcore, hardcore, or whatever, um, by the time you're, I would just say in your teens and certainly in your 20s, your inhibitions are pretty much zero. That's why we have now this phenomena of, very young people getting involved with, nude selfies and even more extreme things than that, because it doesn't, when you see people doing it all the time, and we have to remember that really the most famous woman in the world right now, Kim Kardashian, is, that's what she's known, that's what she became famous for doing. So, it's not a big deal anymore. When I was a boy, I didn't know any Christian men specifically who were, willing to guide young boys, into the way of manhood. But, one of the things that makes homosexuality in the gay male world so attractive to, alienated and disaffected youth is that you do have numerous men who are there, willing to, guide you into the world of, what you think is masculinity. And that is something that is terribly missing outside of homosexuality. And that really, really needs to change, because if it doesn't, the gay world will continue to be very attractive. And what you have in homosexuality is sort of a sick initiation process into manhood through sex. But, even though the risk of AIDS is extremely high for young gay men, the risk is worth it, because I was, in their shoes one day, and it seemed preferable to, make a bargain, and, possibly lose your life, but, I felt that was better than being alone any longer. And, converting to Christianity after, being gay for so long, most of my life up to that point, I had a vision of it sort of as, it would be a very comforting home for me, and I find a lot of support there, and, everything would be okay, and I'd be safe. Well, it wasn't that way. Probably the most thing I've suffered from, um, it's been the most difficult is just the lack of support within specifically Catholicism, and how us guys who are ex-gay or have same-sex attraction but choose not to act upon it have really had to form our own support groups and really try to guide each other. And we tend to huddle around just a very few priests, prelates, and laymen who are willing to help us. Yet there are those within our own church who, you know, mock and disregard us. And it's sort of ironic because, when we were boys, we really turned towards homosexuality, partly because we were, you know, mocked and disregarded by men. And then we go to a church where we find that we're mocked and disregarded all over again because we don't want to be gay. The thing is, the closer, us men and women who have same-sex attraction and, choose not to act upon it, the closer we get to Christ, the more we suffer because we do not approach Jesus on Easter morning, but, I believe we go to him when he is suffering at Calvary. And it's a difficult place to be. I've been there probably ever since I became a Christian, and the temptation is to walk away. But we are really, we're among a few. We're there with Our Lady. We are there with Mary Magdalene, the former whore, and we are there with the virginal St. John, and really the extremes of our Lord's followers. And, we lived an extreme life a lot of times. I certainly did. And there's just no other place for us. And the suffering is going to be intense because I think for the most part, the church doesn't understand us, and certainly society doesn't understand what we are doing. So I wish to offer you guys some hope, but I just want to tell you the truth, that this path, that if you set upon it, is going to be difficult, but you can gain the world, but you can lose your soul. And you are giving up the world, and you're giving up everything to do what is right and to be with our Lord at the hour that he gave up his life to save humanity. And there's nowhere that I would rather be. God bless y'all.